Well, good morning. This is Lou Benninger. I'm here with the Wikiman Santos Vigil, and we're here to talk for 3 hours today. We're going to wrap it up at noon, and if you're first time you've ever listened, we're talking about all kinds of stuff going on in the valley here in Northern California, as well as the state and the United States. So hang on. Normally, you can call in and talk to us live, but we're actually pre-recording this just a few hours ahead of when I normally come on because we couldn't be here at the appropriate time on Saturday. So you can call in and leave a message if you have a praise report, if you want to go an attaboy or atta-Lou, and or I hate you, Lou. You can call 742-5555 with a 530 on the front. 530-742-5555, and the big dog that runs this station called KMYC The Patriot, 1410 AM, will pick it up, and he'll ponder that for a minute. So, again, don't get frustrated if you don't get us live, but we're going for it. This is a new show. We're not doing a rerun or leftovers or the worst of, the best of. So we're glad you're listening, and we reach out to about 5 different counties. And if it's a little fragile out there, you don't get us coming in really strong, you could always go on our website, which is kmycradio.com, and click on the Listen Live button, and it should come in better, kmycradio.com. Or if you don't have time to fuss with us and you can't get over there at that website for some reason, you can go to YouTube and go to the YouTube channel called One Eye Blind Media, One Eye Blind Media, and then click on the listening lists and look for Live with Lou and pick this date if you want this date or another date, and you can listen at your leisure. All right, well, today, this weekend is the President's Weekend, right? Or we used to call it originally Washington's birthday. And then we call it the President's Birthdays. And when I was going to school, we used to think of, we used to honor Washington and Lincoln. And because the date they picked to have the day off was right in the middle of their birthdays. But in the beginning, because George Washington was such a hero, he probably could have been a dictator of the United States if he wished to be. But he didn't want to be. And after a couple of terms, he said, that's enough for me. I'm going to retire. And but they had such a high regard for George Washington, they wanted to honor him with a day of remembrance. And so he died in 1799. And so in 1800, they began to respect him and honor him on his birthday of February 22nd. But then, as years went by, we had various presidents, and Abraham Lincoln had such a profound impact during the war between the states and the fight over slavery and the stress of the country, and then he gets assassinated. They honored both presidents on the same day. But then the unions got involved, and you'll notice whenever things get really screwed up in the United States, you can look to the unions. And did they ever do any good? Yeah, they help people organize. There's nothing wrong with organizing in the private sector. I don't think government unions should be allowed. But the unions, the government unions, went to the legislature, which they always do, to force the rest of society to do what the unions want. And they didn't want to have these various holidays throughout the year in the middle of the week. And they wanted their union membership to be able to benefit from 3- and 4-day weekends. So they convinced a senator by the name of Robert McElroy of Illinois to bring forth a law to shift the celebration of a number of federal holidays from specific dates to a series of predetermined Mondays. And so there's what you have. Now, my friend Dr. Cassidy, who worked for government for about 25 years, said that normally on Fridays you could blast a shotgun through most government offices and never hit any workers because they're all gone. And the reason is that they have such lush packages. Like while you and I are working 5, 6, and 7 days a week to support them, they work 3 and 4 days a week because they have so many sick days and so many holidays and so many vacation days. And if they don't use them, actually, if they don't use them, they don't lose them. If they don't use them, they can actually get money for them later in most cases. So they passed, the unions weighed upon the legislature to pass the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which combined Washington and Lincoln's birthday. Now they've further watered it down to where just any old president will do. Now, this is a shame of it. Now we have to include people like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama in there, and I don't want to honor them anyway. I don't even want to remember their birthday or remember the fact that they served the country. But that's how we ended up. So now we have a day where most government employees didn't even work today. The bosses, I mean, the line staff did, the patrol officers, right? All those folks. But the rest of them got it off. But it's a time to remember Lincoln. I always think of it as Lincoln and Washington. And so there you have it. Well, everybody's heard about the shootings. And so the Democrats sent out, the Democrat National Committee sent out a fundraising item to raise money on the backs of these young children and adults that were killed in Florida. Isn't that sick? I mean, these people got no scruples at all. So, but there's all kinds of fake news out there, and one of the anti-gun websites put out a piece of fake news that senators, congressmen, and the news media all jumped on, that there had been 18 school shootings so far in 2018. It's just a crock of crap. So they included in that any type of gunfire or bullet hole through a window in any vicinity around a school. So in one case, a gentleman went on to school after hours and shot himself. Just like one day, a gentleman went to the Thunder Valley Casino, pulled into the parking lot, shot himself in the car. So that really isn't a school shooting. When we think of school shootings, we usually think of someone going on the campus with the intention to cause a disturbance and to damage children and their teachers, like happened here with Eric Houston many years ago at Lyndhurst High. But they describe it the same way in this fake news, but there were only 3 shootings that you would really describe as an attempt to do damage, like happened here the other day. So other types of school gunfire was a school resource officer. His gun went off accidentally. So, you know, you just have all this baloney going on, and so you just can't believe anything you hear from the news, because they always want to make it sound like, for instance, they're blaming the President of the United States, which is just totally bizarre. So in this case, one of the school shootings was a 31-year-old man in a Michigan elementary school parking lot shot himself. No teachers and students were involved, so they called that a school shooting. It's just it's baloney, and it's just a twisting of information. Another one was an attempted robbery. A high school student was shot in what appeared to be a robbery near a school. So there you have it. Crazy. Now, Kamala Harris, this quote, I just love Kamala Harris's quote. She's the one who slept her way to the top. Willie Brown used to bang her down in San Francisco back in the day while Willie was married to someone else when Kamala, however you want to say her name, was a youngster. And so, of course, he was getting his way with her, so she wanted something for him. So he would appoint her to committees that did little and collected a lot of money. Eventually, she became district attorney of San Francisco, then attorney general of California, and then now she's senator, one of 2 senators for the state of California. She's the one that's usually kind of bitchy. If you ever see her interviewing people in one of her committees, she wouldn't want to be a person. She wouldn't be a person I would want to have dinner with, for instance. So her comment is, we can't live anymore with any pride when our babies are being slaughtered. Now, she's the one who, when they exposed Planned Parenthood for selling baby parts, instead of going after Planned Parenthood, who were chopping up kids and selling their parts like parting out a car, she actually went after the investigative reporters and tried to put them in jail. Now, she is a big supporter of Planned Parenthood and abortion, and I think the last I heard of it or knew of it, we were losing about 4,000 or so kids per day. I don't know whether she considers those our babies or not. I guess there's, I know Barbara Boxer, the former senator that Kamala Harris took her spot. Boxer actually was in favor of a law that you could actually birth a baby, and then if you decided you didn't want him, you could bring him back and abort him after born. Not only partial birth, but full birth, and you could return them just like you return a shirt, right? So I don't know. These people, I don't know whether they actually listen to what they say. We can't live anymore with any pride when our babies are being slaughtered, and they are just chopping them up and selling them into pieces. It's just, who can figure? Now, I heard a guy on the radio today, and I've seen it written a couple times, where he must have gone to school when I did, because he talked about having a gun rack in the back window of your pickup. You remember that? We had, my dad and I, we hunted. So we had a gun rack in the back window, and we just threw our shotgun or our rifle in the back, and you drive around town, you just leave it there, right? Because you could lock your car or not lock your car. Nobody would take your gun. So he talked about kids would go out hunting in the morning and then go to school. They go duck hunting, go to school, and leave their gun right there in the gun rack in the parking lot. Nobody was shooting anybody. So what's changed? Now, in fact, I never did track this down, but a kid got arrested and put in juvenile hall here in Marysville because supposedly he had a gun in his car, and supposedly he said he went hunting in the morning. So the left will not deal with this. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. All the ways that we use guns to defend people or protect people. We defend the president with guns, Congress with guns, governors with guns. In fact, I know the guy that used to be a city police officer. He drives around with Governor Brown and protects him. We defend our celebrities with guns. Guns protect our sporting events, jewelry stores, banks, office buildings, factories, courts, guns, right? Go in there and try to wrestle with a bailiff, why don't you, one day in the court, see how that goes. Now, but we will not, for some reason, the left will not, they want to leave the children exposed. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. In 1974, Israel had a massacre. It's called the Malot, M-A-'A-L-O-T, Malot massacre, in which Palestinian terrorists took 115 people hostage at the Netiv Meir elementary school. 22 children and 3 others were killed, and 68 more were injured. 22 killed children, 3 other adults killed, and 68 were injured. That triggered Israel not to take guns away from everybody, but they now require that any school with 100 or more students, they have guards posted. I want you to think about that. Now, they have guards with guns posted. They don't have some resource officer, one guy for 45 acres of campus, right? 2,000 kids. You know, I don't know whether did you notice in the last 10, 15 years, schools have put fences around them. Have you ever had any problem getting into school? I can walk into any school in the 2-county area of Yuba Sutter, where I'm talking from, and there's open gates. There's gates, and the fences are not high. They're just small fences, maybe 5-6 feet, and you could go right over the top of them, and the gates are usually open, and there are no guards. And I remember at one time, I don't know whether the resource officer or quote-unquote cop at Yuba City High School is packing anymore, but at one time they wouldn't allow people to pack guns. Now, a couple of years ago, Governor Brown gave options of schools to pack or not, have a concealed weapon. But so many wanted to pack that now they've made it off limits for everybody. So they've actually made it available for any nutcase to go on any school, because honestly, people, this is so stupid. I feel like, why am I even talking about this? So the civilian police force of Israel handles the entire security system of all schools from kindergarten through college in Israel. The Ministry of Education funds shelters and fences, because they're watching for suicide bombers, not just people that are mental. These are suicide bombers. So they have shelters, fences, they reinforce school buses, and they hire and train all the guards. Now, the other thing that they do in Israel, because they're under attack every day, is they don't use school buses like we do. They use public transportation. And because then kids can scatter about and they can't target 40 or 50 kids in one shot, right? Smart, huh? Israelis are more like Republicans. They actually think for a living. So guards don't just stand around. These guards in Israel check everyone entering, and they will engage people that make a threat. In other words, they shoot them. Isn't that great? I think that's a great idea. Just shoot people that are looking gnarly. So they have guns, and the reason they have them is to protect school personnel and students, and create a sense of security, and deter the ill-intentioned and the nutcases. You get it? Now, in America, these liberals, they just have a flat spot on the brain, and they can't sort this out, and it's just frustrating to me. I felt the whole 8 years of Obama was this way, just like they talk around in circles, and you just actually don't go anywhere. You just drive around in circles in the parking lot and pretend like you accomplished something. So, by the way, did you see where they just indicted? What a coincidence. They just indicted all these Russians. Now, what good does that do? Guys don't even live here. This Mueller, why don't they give him a broom and actually broom out the front of the White House or something? Honestly, that guy is such a nutcase. And between him and Comey, what an embarrassment. And the FBI had how many heads up on this shooter in Florida? One after another, after another, after another, after another. Unbelievable. And they've been tracking the Russians here for a year, but they couldn't just go over there and put that guy away. Unbelievable. The FBI, it's a shameful thing. The FBI has become an embarrassment to the entire nation. I think other countries are just laughing at us. If I worked for the FBI, I'd be ashamed. In fact, I know one gal that works for the FBI. I know she'd just probably horrified. So anyway, what a terrible thing. Well, let's see. What do we got? 1 minute? Okay. We're going to take a break here. We got 2.5 more hours. Hang with us, and we're going to talk more about the school district here in just a minute. All right, welcome back. I want to talk about schools today, public schools, government schools that are the primary way people get educated in the United States. The options are private schools or charter schools that are part of the public school system. And they're growing in number and in the number of attendees, but the lion's share of the population is going to public schools. The reason is we pay for them with our tax dollars. In California, if you're a property owner, you pay for them with property taxes. And within the last 40 to 50 years, what started out with teachers having a professional group before it was actually called a union to support their interests and high quality teachers and credentialing and all that kind of stuff. They became a full-blown hardcore union, and now they represent possibly the strongest unions, most powerful unions of the state of California. And they essentially run the California schools. And what's happened is every time you are critical or I'm critical of schools, people say, "Oh, you hate teachers." You know, whenever you cannot get rid of a bad mechanic, a bad teacher, a bad barista, a bad clerk, it affects the entire system. And so what the unions did is the unions have nothing to do with children. They say, "Oh, we love children." Actually, they don't. All they love is their members because they give them lots of money. So you pay your taxes, then your tax dollars pay for the schools and the salaries of the unions. They work as little as they can get away with for the amount of money that they get over 183 or 86 days a year. And they protect bad teachers. They protect them in such a way that it's nearly impossible unless somebody is found guilty with a felony where they assaulted somebody, raped somebody, murdered somebody, major drug charges. You're not going to be able to get rid of them. And particularly, you're not going to get rid of a teacher that doesn't commit a crime that's just a crappy teacher. You're stuck with them for life. And so what they do in many districts is if they get into a scrap with a teacher and the administrative judge or the commission that they go before says you got to keep them, they'll move them to what they call a rubber room, where they'll go there every day and sit all day, and they pay them for just sitting around because it's cheaper to do that than to fight them with all the attorneys involved. Now, I'm going to tell you a situation that happened in Southern California, and then I'm going to talk about the city, the Yuba City Unified School District. And I wrote an article when we have for those of you that are in other counties, we have a longtime physical education teacher, Jim Whitaker, who's also a supervisor in Sutter County, that has had a reputation of improper behavior with women on campus and elsewhere. That's been the rumor. And then there have been people that have actually talked about it, that had had it happen to them, but nothing ever happened when they came forward. And so life goes on, and he stays in the system. He's in their system over 20-something years. And now there's a problem because someone came forward and made a big stink about it. But I want to talk about a situation because when I wrote the first article in the Territorial Dispatch, you want to look at it, you can, a couple issues ago, territorialdispatch.biz, I wrote about the fact that Jim Whitaker was put on administrative leave. That's where he gets paid for just hanging around until they can figure out what to do here with these charges, whether they're real, whether they're accurate, whether they're not, etc., and give him due process. So, but my main concern was that I don't believe that the school system is properly protecting children. They don't pay attention to them. They don't take them seriously. They call all these people are supposedly mandated or mandatory reporters. They don't actually do the reporting. Like one guy the other day said he didn't have to report. He was on the school campus and teacher, and he said, he told this girl, I don't have to report because I didn't see what happened to you or what happened to that girl. So they don't know what they're doing. They're teachers. They claim the teachers and the teachers' teaching system, the principals and all the system, the bureaucrats and the people with masters and doctorates, they claim they're the smartest people in the area. They continually screw up. They can't get basic policies straight, so they're constantly violating students' rights, parents' rights, and doing a crappy job in the classroom. All you have to do is look at the test scores. Please, I know they're great teachers. I know them. I know Doug Eshman. I know Mary Kovalad School. He has a great school, great teachers. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about all the people that need to be out of the school system. So a few years ago, this caught my attention, and so I looked it back up. A guy named Mark Berndt, B-E-R-N-D-T, B-E-R-N-D-T, had been teaching for many, many years, long-time teacher, like Mr. Whitaker, in the Miramonte Elementary School in Florence, called Florence, South Los Angeles. In December 2010, people began to be concerned about Mr. Berndt, and they found dozens of questionable photographs of children connected to him. They suspend Berndt on February 2011. That's 3 months later. They suspended him from teaching position and notified him that they intended to fire him. March 11th. I'm going to give you a timeline here and see how absurd this is. March 2011, Berndt, what this guy was doing, he had elementary kids. He was ejaculating. This is one of the things he did. This will get your attention, I think. He was ejaculating into a spoon, blindfolding the kids, and he was doing taste tests and comparing different tastes, and he was putting sperm in their mouth. Berndt and he was doing other stuff as well. 2011, March, Berndt objects to the district's dismissal of him and requests a hearing. That's what Mr. Whitaker's doing, which was since set for October. Now we started in December. Now we're almost a year away to October. Then in June 11th, Berndt and district reach a settlement. The Los Angeles unit, after they paid him all those months, the LAUSD paid Berndt $40,000 to just not teach anymore. In January of 2012, Berndt, 61, is arrested for allegedly committing felony molestation with 23 children ages 6 to 10 years old. Police cite nearly 40 photographs of Berndt allegedly committing lewd acts. I explained one of them just a second ago. And they held him on $2.3 million bail. Police release a mugshot of Berndt. Parents at the school voiced their dissatisfaction with administrators for withholding information for more than a year about this guy. I want you to pay attention about, these are mostly minority, mostly Mexican, some of them even illegals that are in the Miramonte area. Miramonte. So the judge increased Berndt's bail from $1 million to $23 million. $1 million for each count against him. Police say they seized 350 more photos at Berndt residence of him with these kids, his own school kids. And a Redondo Beach CVS that produced these photos. Former fourth grade student at Berndt's school, Nadine Martinez Rodriguez, said she witnessed some inappropriate conduct but was scared to speak up about it. Now, I want you to hold that thought. Scared to speak up. Now, this is a fourth grader, but she didn't come forward till all hell broke loose. And the teachers now are saying, and some of Mr. Whitaker's supporters are saying, well, they should have done, they're just money chasing her. That. I want you to think about what it's like. I remember what it's like when I was a teenager. I just wanted to get through the class, pass the class, and the adults were in charge. They could pull me out of the class. I got detention a lot. I got in trouble a lot. I was getting, sent here, do this, talk to this person, all that. They ran my life when I was over at that school. And so kids, particularly females, are fairly shy at that age, and they don't have a lot of pop to scrap with a guy that's 4 times their height or 3 times their height and has a lot of experience. So hold that thought. So the Nadine Martinez Rodriguez says she witnessed some inappropriate conduct, but was so scared to speak up. A lawyer for another mother whose daughter was allegedly abused files a claim in court against Miramonte School District, the teacher in the district, claiming a massive cover-up that allowed the alleged improper conduct to occur. Now, I want you to hold that thought about a massive cover-up. You think, oh, well, that means people met in a smoke-filled back room. No, they don't. They're just too spineless. They're too spineless to stand up to a bully. You know, the biggest bullies on high school or in elementary school campuses are not the kids. Are there bullies among kids? Absolutely. The biggest bullies are the government system are the biggest bullies. And they're bullies when teachers know some teacher is a crappy teacher or an abusive teacher or is flirting around in areas with particularly females that they should not be doing, and they don't say jack about it, even though they're a mandated reporter. And so this mother, finally, she got fed up. After 2 years, she filed a lawsuit against the district for a massive cover-up. Now, in February 6, 2012, you remember we started in 2010. February 2012, it's learned that a former Miramonte Elementary teacher's aide, Ricardo Guevara, was convicted and sentenced. He got sentenced to 15 years in prison in 2005 for lewd acts with children. It turns out, I'm not going to go through all the details, but 2 or 3 people other than Mark Burnt were also doing stuff with kids on that campus. Nobody knew about it. So John Deasy was a school superintendent back in those days. Deasy announced to parents in a closed meeting that the Miramonte Elementary School will completely gut its entire staff and social workers and will be replaced, and social workers will be placed. In other words, they're going to take all the staff. Did they fire them? Nope, they didn't fire them. They call it the dance of the lemons. You know how you have a lemon car? A lemon, you ever heard of a lemon? A lemon, it doesn't run, right? You buy a car, it's a lemon. So the dance of the lemons is when you got a crappy teacher, instead of firing them, because they can't fire them, it costs so much money, they just keep them, so they keep shuffling them from school to school. They just move them from school to school. So they flushed all the Miramonte parents were so paranoid that so many people were molesting kids that they moved the entire staff out and they put social workers in addition to teachers in every classroom. How much is that going to cost? Come on, baby. February 7, 2012, parents are upset over a state law that allows public school teachers convicted of felonies to still collect their pensions, which are paid with taxpayer money. How about that? I mean, this union school system is, you think the mafia is bad. These people got the mafia whooped big time. February 9, 2012, an exclusive NBC4 report reveals that L.A. Unified School District paid Mark Burnt to resign. That was the $40,000. They said, listen, you already given paid for not doing anything for months. We're giving you $40,000. Disappear, partner. Then they filed charges against him and arrested him and had $23 million in bail. Burnt pleaded not guilty to charges of committing lewd acts involving more than 20 children. We're already into March 2012. Prosecutors say they are still going through a lot of photos and working to identify new potential victims. Burnt's attorney asked the judge to lower the bond from $23 million to $1 million. Finally, they go before the California legislature in June 28th of 2012, and they got a bill passed. This is over this one deal to expedite the disciplinary review process for teachers accused of sexual abuse. And you know something? It failed to pass the assembly education. This guy was putting his sperm in the mouths of elementary kids. That sucker, if that would have been my kid, we wouldn't have to fuss with him. I would have shot him right in the face, and that would have been it for him. But the Assembly Education Committee, because they're perverts down there in Sacramento, they failed to have an expedited process for disciplinary review when there's sexual abuse. So 14 mothers on July 10th, just a few days after this, They filed a lawsuit alleging that the school district did not protect their children from accused teacher Mark Burnt. Listen, that Yuba City Unified School District has been out of line, has not protected kids, has not filed their reports. The principals of that Yuba City Unified teacher, Highland, Ramirez, all the rest of them, have jacked people around, playing games, don't remember, can't remember that, can't remember this. Well, I didn't think that was going to happen. Well, I thought somebody else was going to take care of it. Well, we'll see if everybody gets deposed, if it ever gets that far. Or maybe they'll just pay everybody off with our money, right? So the FBI finally, they didn't want to get involved, right? The FBI is worthless today. They're totally corrupted. You can see that at the federal level. You got people playing politics, picking it's a wonder they didn't shoot Trump through the temple. So finally, they don't want to get involved. This is a guy that molested 20, 30, maybe more kids. They finally get him nailed down to 20. So a report from the California State Auditor says that the LA Unified School District was slow. I want you to hold that thought. Slow to investigate allegations of employee abuse against students and often failed to report them to a state teaching commission. I want all you teachers over at Yuba City Unified, you took all these oaths. You agreed to abide by the protocols, the ed code, and you don't know jack about situations in your community of students over there. So on December 5th, 2012, attorneys for Miramonte students announced 4 new lawsuits filed against the district over alleged sex abuse, as the district said it faced 189 claims. 189 claims. These are elementary kids. What do? Expect a 3rd grade or a 4th grader to come over and like wage war against a guy that's 60 years of age? They're totally petrified of a 60-year-old. December 18th, the former Los Angeles Unified School District student is awarded $23 million in damages for sexual abuse he endured, and the district was ordered to pay 30% of that, or $6.9 million. That's just one kid. 2013, Burnt appears in court and is put on notice he may face more charges. Several groups of parents and about half the students who filed claims against Burnt agree to a multi-million-dollar settlement totaling $30 million. June 5th, a settlement offered from Los Angeles is characterized as an insult and absurd by attorneys for the families of students. The settlement equals about $425,000 per victim. Judge approves 61 settlements to families involved in the Miramonte scandal, etc. Burnt pleads no contest finally in 2013. Remember, we started in 2010. Nothing would have happened to this guy except they paid him off to walk away. The district didn't have any power. Thank God the district attorney stepped in. November 15, 2013, Burnt pleads no contest, avoiding a trial. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Okay, all the way up to 2014, in an exclusive interview, I think this is an attorney, Judge Breed, claims Unified School District destroyed key evidence in the Miramonte case by shredding thousands of pages of documented allegations of child abuse collected over a 20-year period. The district spokesman admits the district did, in fact, destroy documents in 2008 when district lawyers believed a section of the California Penal Code meant they shouldn't have had those documents in the first place. Man, if you have documents, what are you supposed to do with them? Shred them immediately? But it's like Mission Impossible. You give them the mission, and then it just dissolves in your hand. May 2014, a judge gives the attorneys for the district 24 hours to produce photos they believe to be... folks, this just goes on. The judge finally penalizes the district financially for screwing off. It's just on and on and on and on. Finally, the district is going to pay out $139 million to more than 70 victims of sexual abuse in 2014. How did all this happen? How did it all happen right under the nose of all these teachers that are mandated reporters and social workers and psychologists and all these wonderful, godly, beautiful, educated, amazing teachers and administrators. How did it happen? 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 Guy, total criminals, molesting kids. So now we have Jim Whitaker. I'm not going to go through all the details of it. You can read about it in the Appeal Democrat and the Territorial Dispatch. But all of a sudden, an incident happened over there where Mr. Whitaker claims that he thought there was a couple of girls fighting. So he did his due diligence to break it up. The girls said, we were just horsing around, and Mr. Whitaker grabbed my rear end. Mr. Whitaker says he bumped his knee into her. Then the two girls go and they report that to another physical education teacher who blows them off, says, oh, well, I didn't see it. I don't have to report it. And older men, they kind of do that kind of stuff. Now, that's the story of the girls, right? So there's another side to the story, right? And, of course, Roberto Marquez, who is the criminal defense attorney, is representing Mr. Whitaker, and he says this isn't going to pan out to anything, and these things never do. And when it gets down to evidence, he'll show that Mr. Whitaker did the right thing and is a great guy. So maybe he's going to do that. And I'll give you my conclusion to that in a second. So anyway, yesterday, because that teacher did, the second teacher, not Mr. Whitaker, but the second teacher, was the one that they talked to about this, said what I just said. I don't have to report it. He violated the law. You see, before, people were just doing that all the time. They just looked the other way. They'd hear something. They don't want to get involved because they don't want to cause any problems because he's my friend and I don't want to get hurt feelings and all that stuff. So kids always lose. So they put him on, this other guy, the teacher that was told about this, physical education teacher. He didn't do anything about it. So they put him on administrative leave. Now, they put Whitaker on a leave. Then there was an initial hearing. The incident was January 22nd. Then there was a school board meeting soon after that. And they said that the board said that they felt they had enough after talking to their attorney to organize documents to terminate Mr. Whitaker, terminate his employment. So then this last week, there was a second hearing where they voted once again to move forward to terminate his employment. So now, that was at the January, actually, the first meeting was January 30, then the second meeting was just this Tuesday. So now Mr. Whitaker has the opportunity to deny the charges, which he already has, and to go to a three-person hearing where an administrative law judge and two teachers will hear him out and hear the arguments, pro and con, and make a decision, and then the district will have to abide by that. Now, if they terminate him, he has an opportunity. He can still appeal it. Now, there have been a number of people from 14 to probably up into their 30s that have claimed, women have come back and claimed that he touched them. No one has said that he had sexual intercourse with them or that they were raped. Mainly, it involved touching them in improper spots on their body. So I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to tell you a story of one of the students when we come back where they tried to tell it the other night at the meeting, but they ran out of time. I'm going to tell you the story in just a minute. All right, you're listening to Live with Lou. We're into our second hour, and I want to give a shout-out about the trauma intervention program. WikiMen played a clip advertisement for that. If you're unfamiliar with that, in the Yuba Sutter counties, that's a nonprofit where we train volunteers to go out with fire and police. But the reason I'm bringing it up now is because we have our annual training coming up this coming Thursday, the 22nd of February. And if you have any interest in that, you should come to the orientation, and you can dial me up at 530-713-1838. That's 530-713-1838, or you can just look up Trauma Intervention Program of Yuba Sutter online, or go to our website at yubasuttertip.org, yubasuttertip.org, and you can email me off that. But if you're interested in checking it out and seeing about volunteering, you could go out on emergency scenes and be a great help. We'd appreciate it. But we only train once a year, so people say, oh, Lou, right at the end of the training, somebody will call me, oh, I'm sorry, I should have called earlier. Don't you do another training in a couple months? I said, no, be 12 months. So if you want to do that, give us a shout. So also I want to thank the Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots for supporting us. Things cost money. It costs money to be on the air out here and take care of business. So they make it happen for us. And we want to just say we appreciate them. And they meet together on the first and third Mondays of the month, and they meet out at the building on the campus at Church of Glad Tidings at 1179 Eager Road in Yuba City, or Eager Road at 99. And they meet at 6:30 at night. You don't need to be a member. You don't need to pay anything. You can just come. You can just show up. The doors open at 6. And this coming Monday, the 19th, their next meeting, the 19th, John Cox is going to be there. John is a businessman, and he's running for governor. So if you don't like what the Democrats got to offer, you ought to come out there and check it out. And they always have other informational type things they do as well. And if you have any questions, you can dial them up at 755-4409, and they'll help you get connected over there. So I also wanted to mention the folks over at Elite Security, Elite Universal Security, Monty Hecker. They're operating out of Yuba County, but they're located in a few counties. They're Yuba Sutter. They're up in Butte, and they're also all the way up in Redding. And so they do all kinds of services, guard services. They do all kinds of training. So if you want a job, they have jobs. And if you want to be in the guard business, maybe you need some training, they can do both. They'll train you, hire you. So 749-0280, 530-749-0280, EliteUniversalSecurity.com. Go check it out on the internet and see whether it's something you like. I think you'll find the website helpful, EliteUniversalSecurity.com. And their classes are noted at APIacademy.com, API with a hyphen between the I and the A, APIacademy.com. And you can get your concealed permit certificate. You can learn how to use pepper spray, learn how to handcuff people, taser people, settle people down. They call it de-escalation, and all kinds of courses. So check it out and take advantage of that. So we were talking about this very difficult thing for Yuba City Unified School District, having dismissed now 2 teachers over the accusation by a 14-year-old that physical education teacher Jim Whitaker grabbed her behind. But then there's other people that have come forward now, all the way back. The first meeting, it was back to 1998 incidents. Now it's gone back even farther. And so this one account, which was on October 14th, 2014, for 3 years now, over 3 years, the mother has tried to get somebody to do something about this. So let me just give you an overview. I'm not going to read all words of this, but I'll just give you a sense of it. The girl claims that she was playing basketball in the physical education class at Yuba City High. A student that she said she didn't know informed her that the teacher, Mr. Whitaker, was videotaping her with his phone, or recording her with his phone, however you want to look at it, taking a video of her. and her friend from the waist down with his, as I said, with the phone. So the two girls confronted Whitaker, and he said, "Yep, I was doing it." And because he said you weren't participating very well, so I was videoing you. That's her story. He then waved his cell phone in the air and said, "I have a video of you." He's kind of mocking her. When the girl went home, she told her mother. The mother was upset. She completed a student statement and handed it to Mr. Eklund, Eklund, who was the assistant principal. The following day, on the 3rd October, the girl said she returned to her PE class. Mr. Whitaker confronted her in front of all classmates and told her to do 25 push-ups. She said nobody else was doing them. She said, "I was embarrassed, and so I ran out. I just left the class, called my mother." So the mother then called Mr. Eklund and asked to meet with Eklund and Whitaker. And the meeting was for October 7th. At the very beginning of the meeting, she said she had Whitaker, before she could say, she said before she could have a chance to speak, Whitaker said, "Hey, you know, every teacher has someone they don't get along with." So the lady, the mother, asked Mr. Whitaker and if he videotaped the daughter, and he said yeah. And she said, even though she was shocked, she was shocked that he actually admitted it. So she said, "I want to see the video," and he told her that Eklund and the principal, Mr. Ramirez. Now, you'll notice in these reports from these various women back in the day that Mr. Ramirez, who is no longer at Yuba City High School campus, he's now at the district headquarters, he comes up over and over again. So Whitaker claimed that Eklund and Principal Ramirez told him to delete the video. So I told him, "I was told you videotaped her from the waist down. I don't know you. This not only is harassment, it's sexual harassment, and our conversation is over." And so then Eklund and Ramirez came in. When they entered the room, the mother said, "I asked Eklund and Ramirez, are you aware that he videotaped my father?" They both said, "It's under investigation." When I asked why they had told Whitaker to delete the video, Eklund assured me that they had not told him to do that. I requested that Whitaker return to the room because he just told me differently. However, they instead just told me that they were investigating, and that was it. I then asked for the campus resource officer, and they again refused and repeated, "It's under investigation." I informed them that my daughter had been subject to sexual harassment, and they said, "That's a pretty strong accusation." At this point, I realized they were not planning to listen or help me, so I told them I would file my own police report and left. After my daughter's friend told her mom what had happened, and et cetera, et cetera. So they got a police officer, Officer Paletta, P-A-L-E-T-T-A, with the Yuba City Police. And he began to take the statements. When we told the officer the teacher's name, he paused and informed us that he would need to check with his supervisor before taking the report because we were filing a complaint about a supervisor of the county of Sutter. He then went to his patrol car. He verified that the teacher in question and the county supervisor were the same person. He then claimed he was given permission to take the report. The report number is this. I won't go over that, no purpose. So, unfortunately, Mr. Paletta, Officer Paletta, did not investigate and do a full investigative report. He did what they call an information report. So when the mother went to get the report, they would not release it to her because they said, "We don't have to," because it's what I would call an abbreviated report. In other words, he decided there was no purpose in investigating this. So when the next day the friend and the other girl went into the PE class, Mr. Whitaker told us, "Get out of here." So he went and changed classes. On October 15th, Mr. Whitaker came into my new PE class, taught by Mrs. Connie Smith. Now, Connie Smith was one of 3 PE teachers the other night before the board that that claimed that they'd never heard an accusation against Mr. Whitaker. Did you get that? That was Mrs. Lusich, Miss Smith, and Coach Stassi. So they stood up and said that in front of over 100 people and the school board. So here's what happened on October 15th, 2014. In the new PE class taught by Miss Connie Smith, while Smith and the classmates were present, Whitaker came in and stared me down. It made me uncomfortable that he would do that to a student. After class, Mrs. Smith asked me and my friend what happened and why we needed to change classes. We didn't tell her much. I reported the incident in Mrs. Smith's class on the 16th. I ended up, etc. Anyway, then she goes on. The mother says, met with Bruce Morton at the district to talk about home studies. I asked him if he knew about my daughter's situation. He claimed he didn't know anything about it. He said he would investigate the daughter's reports and also approved her going on home studies. Neither of us heard back anything from him or the school district. During my daughter's junior year, she went back to Yuba City High part-time to participate on the cheer squad. She was nervous having Whitaker around. It caused her problems. In other words, I'm just summarizing a couple things here because I don't want to, for sake of time. So the mother says, according to the district's complaint regarding a district employee policy, staff is responsible for investigating complaints, shall attempt to resolve the complaint to the satisfaction of the parties within 30 days. My daughter, she says, has yet to receive a determination of the resolve of her complaints. Therefore, I will be contacting you to get da-da-da. Anyway, what the mother is essentially saying is her child's student rights were not upheld. And in a number of these cases, like with the Foster case, Andrea Foster, this is in 1998. Mr. Highland said he can't remember a thing from back then. It was very convenient. And so in 1998, she filed a report, and they dug it out. God bless them over there at Yuba City. They had it, thankfully for them. And it said that they had found there was a problem, and they took the appropriate action. But unfortunately, the appropriate action was not delineated in the report. So we don't know what happened. We don't know whether he couldn't get as many Snicker bars. He couldn't use the toilet as often as he used to. We don't know what was actually in. Was there any? Did he get a lecture? Did he get a pink slip in his file? We don't know what happened. So it isn't unusual where there was no follow-through or no explanation to the families or the victims, the complainants, what kind of discipline was taken. Now, Jim Whitaker told the Appeal Democrat that in his 26 years of teaching, he had never faced allegations like this in the past. Now, how can that be? We're talking about just the other day, the allegations started, and we're talking about 1998, Andrea Foster made a claim, and other people like a girl named DeWitt made a claim, and yet nobody knows about it. Mr. Highland can't remember it. He said, I'm sorry to hear that. I just can't remember a thing. And so Mary DeWitt said about 20 years ago, Whitaker grabbed her daughter's buttocks as she walked past him outside the gym. DeWitt said her daughter and another student who had allegedly experienced the same conduct gave statements to the school, with Whitaker facing no repercussions. DeWitt challenged Whitaker's supporters, saying there is no grand conspiracy to get him fired. For all of you sitting here tonight, she said, and vouching for his character, which there was a number there at the meeting here this week, you're complicit and you should be ashamed of yourself. So there's been a number of articles written. One of the interesting things that happened, many of the people, including myself who wrote an article about it, were accused of trying, and sentencing Mr. Whitaker in the paper. My article really was focusing mostly on the district, but I just mentioned what had happened. But a lady named Shirley Gabhart, who is kind of a girlfriend of Whitaker's, I say that euphemistically, she's an older woman, but she likes him a lot. So Shirley came to speak for on behalf of Mr. Whitaker, and basically said that the girls were lying, and these people were all there trying to get money. It was all about money, and they're liars, and that this man is a reputable man, a family man, a good teacher, and just and there's nothing that guy has done anything wrong. However, here's what happened. Right in the middle of her talk, she begins to tell specifics about the accuser's life in school that had to come out of the school's, out of the student's file, personnel file, or student file, whatever you want to call it. That is private information, and that's a violation of confidentiality. She began to tell how many times the girl had been to the office for disciplinary situations, or how many times she dropped the F-bomb. And I thought, well, this is interesting. What defense attorneys like Marquez like to do when a girl has been violated and they're representing the perpetrator is they use the slut and nut defense. So the slut and nut defense is they try to look into the girl's past behavior, and if they find anything, they try to say, well, you've been this way and that way and this way and that way, and are you sure that you didn't bring that on, or sure you didn't want it? And, you know, your reputation is not great, so how can we trust you with what you're saying now? So that's the slut part of it. The nut part of it is that you're not really stable. You've had a lot of trouble in school. You're unstable. You're here one day. You're over here the next. You're up and down. You haven't had a stellar academic record. And so that's the nut part of it. Now, I want you to think about, certainly, you know, the reason one of the 10 Commandments deals with lying is that humans have a penchant for lying. Cops do it. Pastors do it. Business people do it. Kids do it. Adults do it. Right? It's a terrible thing. It causes a lot of chaos in society. So, presidents do it. Clinton did it. Obama did it. Right? Clinton did it, like both Clintons did it. And so it's a problem, and it's something that has to be sorted out. But the fact is that children are particularly timid. They are not experienced at life. Girls particularly are shy. Sometimes boys are very shy as well, but a lot of times girls are during that time in their life. And they're intimidated by older adults, but to just write them off as all money seekers and unreliable is improper. And to expose this girl's personal history, now either the school had to give Mrs. Gabhart that information, or the attorney did for Whitaker, or gave it through Whitaker, and they are already trying to destroy this girl's character before we even get to the hearing. So now, here's what's going to happen. I talked to a friend of mine who I consider her an expert at school, a school, what should I call it, goings on. I won't give her away. She works for a different district. But her prediction is that Mr. Whitaker will be exonerated at the commission hearing because administrative law judges typically are biased. They're paid by the unions, just like the California Public Utility Commission administrative judge. When we filed a claim, complaint against the Marysville Water District. And it was the first time in history they had that happen. When it went before the administrative law judge, the guy was obviously biased and paid off and ruled against us, even though it was absurd. And so these people are all a part of the system. And she said, Lou, what's going to happen is he's going to be returned to the district, and they will have a choice of putting him back in the physical education classroom or putting him somewhere else. But they'll have to keep paying him. He's a tenured teacher. But they could plant him somewhere else. So that may be what's going to happen. He has a chance to, and now the other alternative is if a case comes up where somebody can file a law enforcement action, but so far the Yuba City Police Department has not been helpful in dealing with Whitaker. People feel that because his dad was the sheriff once, and then he's been a longtime supervisor, that people don't want to deal with him, that there's trouble there. And so they just would rather go on about their way, and they don't want to scrap. But if there's a charge brought against him where it's a felony, that changes the story. But if it's just a misdemeanor, he's liable to get his job back. How much time do we got? We got 1 minute. We got 1 minute, so we are pre-recording this for Saturday morning, so don't call in and expect a live shot. We're going to come right back. We got half a show to do yet. All right. Lou Benninger here, and we're pre-recording this show for Saturday, so if you call in, you'll get the answering machine. You can leave a message, yay or nay, but you won't get to chat because we'll be on away from here. So this is The Patriot, if you're just tuned in, 1410 a.m., and we're going to be here for a little bit more. We'll be here up till noon. And we're talking about the teachers union, the corrupt teachers union that are controlling all government schools in California and in many states, not all states, but certainly in California, they're one of the strongest in the United States. And they're controlling everything about it, and it's very, very difficult to eliminate a teacher without spending $500,000, $250,000. And that's money that could be used in education. So what happens is that trustees just bend, and they'll just, like in New York, they put people in what they call rubber rooms, teachers in rubber rooms. They call them a rubber room. They're just a room where teachers are told to go and sit. They could read. They can do something. They'll be paid, but they're not allowed in the classroom anymore. And so that's what happens because they can't get rid of them. They can't take them, quit paying them. So Bill Hyland, who was the principal from 1996 to 2005, when there was a number of claims of women, young women, teen girls, being touched inappropriately by Jim Whitaker. Mr. Hyland says, according to the Appeal Democrat, he never received any notification from the district as to any actions taken against his former teacher. So it's interesting. He says, I'm not aware of any other situation involving Mr. Jim Whitaker during my time at the high school. Now, listen, normally when complaints are made, they're not made to the district. They're made on the campus level. They'll be made to a nurse. In fact, Andrea Foster said she made her complaint to the school nurse. So they'll be made to a nurse, to a teacher that someone feels they can confide in, or to the principal or the associate principal or dean of students or something, right? And then it will go up the ladder to the district. Now, it's interesting that Lynette O'Reilly, who was chairing the meeting the other night at the board meeting for Yuba City Unified School District, indicated that the parents' concerns were being heeded and listened to. However, that 3 of the trustees had been on that board for about 15 years, long time, and had not received any complaints against Jim Whitaker. Now, that's a bad sign right there, a real red flag, because there had been some complaints, but they never made it off the campus, and it ended right there. So I'm not countering what Miss Riley said. I'm just saying that when I was on a school board for Yuba County Office of Education, unless the school campus brought something to us, we were not on the campuses during the day, or unless a parent brought something to us. So Andrea Foster said she filed a report against Whitaker last week, even though it had happened in 1998. She filed a report against Whitaker last week with the police department, and the police department has refused to release any information regarding claims against Whitaker. So anyway, I'm just going to let that go. That is a gnarly situation right there, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it. I got other things to talk about here. So there are a couple attorneys, Paul Matiazic. I think that's how you, Matiasic. I think he's out of the Bay Area. He's an attorney for the 14-year-old student. The recent one says he has spoken with 5 current and former students who claim to be victims of Whitaker. Quote, the school district knew at the very highest levels. Whoa. It's a powerful quote right here. According to the Appeal Democrat, the school district knew at the very highest levels of Mr. Whitaker's propensity to engage in inappropriate conduct with students. It's shocking and appalling that they have ratified his conduct in this fashion. Also, Mike Trezza is a local attorney that is representing somebody involved in this. He was on television last night making some statements. So, a school district may, I think I mentioned this, may remove a certificated public employee as deemed necessary. The employee is entitled to pay. They get paid during the investigation and must report to work at the district office, kind of the rubber room, away from the school. And they mention that here. The dismissal investigations can take a few months to more than a year. We see that with Mr. Burnt, B-E-R, from down in Miramonte. Grounds for firing can be immorality, persistent violation of school rules, unprofessional conduct, commission of a felony, or sexual harassment, unsatisfactory performance, or evident unfitness to teach. So a person does not have to be arrested to be fired, right? So anyway, we'll just see how it turns out. Let's see if I want to make any more comments. Here's the deal that's kind of interesting. Who pays? If the school district loses during the process, this is where it gets gnarly for the taxpayer. We get burned either way, folks, if you're a taxpayer out there. If the school district loses during the process, it must pay its own and the employee's legal bills. If the school district wins, it still has to pay its own legal bills, right? Damned if you do and damned if you don't. So I want to just address you parents out there. Please do not send your kids to school thinking that they're going to care for them. That's just a bad deal. Like the Air Force motto, in God we trust, all others we monitor. In God we trust, all others we monitor. You better know who your teachers are. So you know when something goes down out there, you know that teacher. And you know that teacher will either do that, say that, or something. And you better go on campus and help your kid if they start saying stuff. I'm not saying your kid's always going to be right. Sometimes the teacher's is exactly right, and your kid's trying to cover for himself. It's called parenting. You cannot send your kid to a school nowadays. It's different than it was when I was there, when teachers were on the up and up, and they were high quality, and the union wasn't covering for people, and they had to perform at a very high level. The school district at that time, when I was going to school in the Marysville Joint Unified System, were one of the California top schools in the country. Things ain't that way no mo. So listen, you have to be involved on that campus. You have to be involved. So where this ends, stay tuned for more information. We got the attention of the major news networks. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything else here. I'm just looking. There's so many different articles. It says former board member Mary Henson. I've met Mary. She's a nice lady. Says she does not recall any investigation regarding Whitaker going before the board. He didn't because it got taken. Wally and Mary DeWitt say there have been previous investigations against Whitaker. This is a mother and father. They have a growing child now. They claim an administrator called them years ago after their daughter filed a complaint. They say, quote, a couple years later, my wife got a phone call. They just called and said, would your daughter be willing to come home and testify? Come home from where she was living. She's an adult woman. We have another case or something. Would she be willing to come and testify? So, all right. We'll see. I hope it turns out good. And people can have a better experience on the Yuba City High School campus and be safe on the other campuses as well. I want to mention what's happening is California public retirement system is going broke. It is underfunded, and it is not making enough money off the investments, off all the retirement contributions it's taking from all around the state to cover the retirement payments going out. So that means that the counties and the cities and the state and other agencies that are tapped into that system are having to backfill financially the CalPERS system. In other words, the amount of money that the government jurisdictions are having to pony up or pay is going to go up 50% over the next few years. That money is not available. That money, there's no surpluses. So that money has to come out of the general fund. So if you notice potholes like in Marysville, honestly, some of the cracks in the street of Marysville, my foot could get in it and I could snap my ankle at night if I didn't see it coming. Parks, sewage systems, drainage systems, all the infrastructure of the county and the city are going to go to pot. The police, which is the main reason that cities and counties organized, is to finance law enforcement for public safety and fire. So what's happened is the county of Yuba right now paid $30,000, hired a Sacramento firm to do a survey of residents. And it's interesting the way, it's kind of like using a euphemism, like when they cut and they cut apart a baby or poison it with saline solution. They just say we terminated the pregnancy. They don't get into the gory details, right? So the way that the Yuba County leaders they spin this is that they're doing the citizens a favor by spending $30,000 of our tax dollars to ask us whether we like the police and we want police or whether we hate crime. Now, they didn't need to do that. I could call a few people and let them know we hate crime. We think crime's a problem. I don't want people taking a crap on my front step. That's pretty clear. And we want the police to do their job. And we actually want police. So they paid somebody $30,000 to talk to between 500 and 600 people. Now, I haven't done the math on how many what is that per person? Is it like $500 a piece? I don't know. Figure that out. I'll have to figure that out at the break. Anyway, I can't do it in my head right now because I'm all woozy. It's too late at night. So anyway, for reaching less than 600 people and having a talk with them, because people say, I don't want to take the survey, forget you, right? Particularly if they're smoking weed. So they would say, I ain't going to do this. So for less than 600 people, dialing them up on the phone, they got $30,000 to tell us that a lot of people in our town really like the police and fire, and they don't want to have any problems with police and fire, and they don't like crime. There you have it. And the way the leaders of Yuba County spun it was they did me a favor by taking $30,000 of my money, calling 600 people to tell me what I needed. Now, here's what the League of California Cities has advocated and told all the cities and counties. It said, listen, go and raise sales taxes in your jurisdictions to pay this CalPERS pension money because you're going to run out of money. What is it? $60 per call. There you go, $60 per call. That's what the wiki man, that's why we got him here, is he's crunching the numbers in there. He's got his calculator out. We're busting it, right? Or did you do that? Did you do it longhand? You did it. He said he used his head. He did it longhand, this old school, not Common Core. So anyway, $60 a piece it costs to figure that out. Now, Robert Bendorf, who's a smoozer, he says, listen, we're gonna keep reaching out to the public because we know that you want us to do a good job and we really want to know what you feel. Let me tell you what I feel. I'm tired of paying taxes. I'm tired of paying Yuba College taxes that pay for DACA kids. I'm trying to pay for ridiculous high interest rates on bonds for longer than I'm going to be living. And I'm just tired of paying taxes every time you turn around, and then have government officials ignore our wishes and raise wages, take money. What's happened, listen, what's happened in Yuba County during the big housing boom in 2005 through 2008, they gave bonuses and retroactive bonuses that raised the pay on some people $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And then they retired and kept that money going right into retirement. Thinking, you know what I mean? The Bible even tells you this. Don't presume upon the future. Save. Be wise. And you know what's going on right now? The Yuba County is borrowing from one fund to pay another fund to pay another fund. Did you see that article in the paper about the Yuba County Water? Now, it used to be the water agency, Yuba County Water Agency, was devoting all their money to pay off the bonds for that dam that was built in the 60s. And now there's all this money. So more and more, every month you see more and more of that money is now being dumped into the Yuba County because they're running out of money. And what is it going to do? It's going to pay pensions. Now, what the California League of Voters, or not League of Voters, but League of Cities say is, listen, raise taxes and blame it all at police and fire, because that's all people understand. Don't say we got to pay more welfare out. Don't say we need to hire more social workers, right? Don't say we need to hire more bureaucracy, right? Say it police and fire, because people want police and fire. But in the article, here's what Marysville did. In fact, the new city manager, Marty Brown, I was watching her on the Facebook. She was speaking at a radio station this week or last week, and she was talking, and they were talking about the needs of the city of Marysville. And she said, well, the parks are needy and the streets are needy. And so Black, what's Black's name? Is it John? John Black? I can't remember now. Doggone. Anyway, the guy that was running the show says to Marty, well, how are you going to deal with this? And she said, I love this. This is perfect. She said, well, you know, we got this new sales tax. Remember the sales tax for Marysville, folks, all you that voted for it? Remember the pitch? We may not be able to respond to 911 if you don't vote for this. We may not be able to provide fire. We may not get to that heart attack victim quick enough. So this money is desperately needed for police and fire, right? So what did they do right after we got that raise of 1% sales tax? They gave everybody in the city raises. So here's the deal. Marty Brown says, maybe we can use some of this tax money for the parks. And I thought, I didn't vote for the tax thing, but that's not what we were told when we voted for the 1% tax. And do you remember what we were told when that 1% tax came through? They were going to have a blue ribbon committee of just really number crunchers and people that were hard-nosed and tough. And they're going to look over our shoulder, and we were going to be accountable to this committee to spend that money correctly for police and fire, police and fire, police and fire, police and fire, police and fire. Because, remember, they said it's going to go in the general fund because they did it in a fashion where you only needed 50% of the vote plus one. If they want to it seems like it should be just the opposite, right? But if you want to specify it just for police and fire, and by law you can only spend it for police and fire, then you have to have a 2/3 vote. For you and Oliver's, that's 66 point something, right? So they did a 50% plus one, and they said, even though we can use it for anything, you can trust us. You can trust us. We're only going to use it for police and fire. But then Marty Brown on the radio the other day said, well, maybe we can use some of that money on parks. Well, we already used it on clerks and to raise the CEO of the county or the city's wages. So here's what happens, folks. So the article that was written in the Peel Democrat, let's see, it was you can go look at it, in the February 14th paper. Jake Abbott, he wrote a nice article, and he told how there's two ways that you can raise taxes. You can raise sales taxes by doing the 50% plus one, or you could do the 2/3 of all the voters. And if you do the 2/3, then it restricts the money to just police and fire. If you do 50% plus one, you know, as one supervisor comes and goes, and the CEO of the county comes and goes, and people come and go, pretty soon it's just another money stream. Now let me tell you what happened. Back in the day when they expanded the jail, back in the 1990s, Gary Tyndall was the sheriff, and he came up with this idea to make the jail bigger than we needed locally. So then he would rent out beds to the federal government, kind of like a hotel, but where you can cover room and board plus medical. And you pay, I think they started out, the government would pay like $50 a night per bed. Then it went up to $70 a night, I think. And you would hold these guys that were from all over the world, guys and gals, and you would let them go through their court proceedings in San Francisco and Sacramento. Then you would release them. They'd come and go. It started bringing in $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 million a year. But as it did, the supervisors, of course, just like typical politicians, pigs, they started taking that money and spending it for all kinds of stuff. Raising wages, pensions, using it all over the place. And instead of paying for the costs of having those federal, you know, in other words, the money, the tax money that should have gone and take care of the sheriff's department out of the general fund, that's the reason we organize into a city or county, is to have a sheriff. Not all this welfare and all this other crap. They just took that money, the general fund money that should have gone to the sheriff, instead of taking that pension, taking that federal money and putting it in a pot and using it judiciously. Now we've used all that money, we've raised all the wages, we can't pay the pensions, and now we're borrowing from the Yuba County Water Agency. And if you read that article that they just wrote about how they borrowed and moved around, and they used the courthouse for collateral, and then they used the government center for collateral, honestly, people, it's like a guy with a bad gambling habit and robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and writing hot checks over here and then covering them with somebody else, and adding a new credit card to pay off that credit card. People, we're in trouble. And it just, that article, because the poor reporter didn't know his butt from a hole in the ground on how life works. He wrote the article, made sense to me, but obviously he didn't know. When you have to borrow that kind of money, you are in trouble. If you're in your own household and you're having to borrow to pay the rent, and then you got to borrow from somebody else to pay that guy back to pay the rent, you are in trouble. And so do you think people aren't getting paid? Well, between Robert Bendorf and his wife, who's a district attorney, deputy district attorney, they make over $400,000 a year. People are getting paid well. They think, oh, we're not getting paid as well as Yolo County. Hey, screw Yolo County. I don't care about Yolo County. Let them go down there and work if they want to work. Don't let the door hit you in the rear end. So we're getting, it's bait and switch. And I'm telling you, Yuba County Water Agency will very soon, in the next year or two, will be a major funding source to cover costs for Yuba County, because we can't anymore cover our own costs because we have overspent ourselves into the ditch. We'll be right back. All right. You like coffee, don't you? You like coffee? You ever have Temple coffee? Temple coffee. You ever heard of it? People, some youngsters I know are all hot and bothered about Temple coffee. And they say it's like the best coffee. They drive to Sacramento to get Temple coffee. Did you know that? Would you drive an hour to get coffee? Special coffee? People are driving all the way to Sacramento to get Temple coffee and get, all the special coffees, just like if you went to one of these coffee places locally, but they like the brand Temple coffee. So today, Eva, yeah, she brought me by, they wanted me to taste Temple coffee. So they brought me by some iced coffee, latte, Temple coffee. It was good. I liked it. So, but the only place in town I think you can get it, if you, for those folks, they wanted me to tell folks that if you know what Temple Coffee is, it's a special way that they go about getting it. Like I bring coffee, you know, I've given you some coffee from Vietnam, right? If you need some, I have some more. But Central Highlands, they are very proud of their coffee all over the world. Different people are growing coffee in Jamaica, all over the world, Indonesia, coffee. Vietnam, very proud of their coffee. So Temple Coffee, they claim that they spend a lot of extra effort, like the concept of from grower to the cup. And so they take extra precautions about how it's picked and cared for, and chemicals involved or not involved. And so they said you can tell the difference. So I don't know. I'm just getting to know it. I tried some today. It was good. So the Sunflower Market and Deli over in Yuba City on Sutter at Tea Garden Street, right between the two bridges, you can get Temple Coffee. You can buy it by beans, or you can get drinks. So you can get all the, you know, the special drinks that you can get at any other coffee place. You can get them at the Sunflower. And they're open 6 days a week. So you go check it out. If you're a Temple Coffee nut and you think, oh, I really want a Temple Coffee and I don't want to drive to Sacramento, then you don't have to. You can just go over to they got places to hang out over there, and they also have a deli. I always go, do you eat over there? Ever eat over there? I go to the deli. I like the salads and stuff. They get good food there. So anyway, check out the Temple Coffee. Tonight we're enjoying KMYC coffee, right? It's the local. It ain't Temple Coffee. I'll tell you that. It ain't Temple Coffee, but it's all we got tonight. So, okay. I did not know that I would live to see the kind of craziness that's in our society as we have today. It doesn't matter. Did you see the portraits of Obama and his wife? I felt sorry for him. Did it kind of freak you out? I felt sorry for him. I mean, I just felt sorry for him. And when I saw how they reacted did you see how they reacted on the video? In the live? I thought they were uncomfortable. Did they look uncomfortable to you? The Obamas? Anyway, I thought it was the most bizarre. His, with all that, the sitting in the bushes. Somebody photoshopped it and put a toilet where showed him sitting on a toilet in the bushes. I thought it just looked like it fit. It just like, anyway, I just felt bad for him. Life is life for you guys that got some years on you. Is life so crazy today? So when I saw that CNN slammed President Trump because he ate ice cream, did you see that? How dare you eat ice cream while you're talking about changing the food stamp program? So how dare you eat ice cream, right? And nobody ever complained about any other president eating ice cream. It's just like Trump. If he wears a red shirt or a white shirt with a dark suit, he's bad. If he wears a lighter blue suit, he's bad. It just doesn't matter what he does. It's just bad, 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 bad. It doesn't matter. And some really bright people that are good in other areas of their life are just, they've lost their minds over him. There's a spirit of insanity that has struck the nation. So President Trump is suggesting that we do something different about welfare. And for some people, they squeal like a stuck pig. Because it's like people are starving in America like they are like occasionally they have in Ethiopia. And it's like taking the few grains of wheat away from people in Ethiopia as their bones are showing through their skin. And yet people that are poor people in this country, I always see these. In fact, I hear them on this channel every once in a while. They talk about food security. The concept is not starvation, it's food security. Because it's kind of like global warming. When that didn't work out, they just did climate change. So if you can't show kids starving in the streets with big protruding stomachs, and you can count all the ribs, since you can't pull that off and the kids are actually obese, been eating too many McDonald's and milkshakes and sitting around at the computer. So when you got kids that are poor but are obese, then you got to talk about food security, not starvation. So now food, poor people are now victims, and somehow I'm responsible to feed them. I look up and down the street and I kind of spot all the people that I'm paying for because they're not working. So it's like when I was growing up, no, we never even talked about anything like that, and there was no program like that. But I remember in the 70s we lived communally. We lived a bunch of us, young Christian kids. And back then there were no food stamps. There was more like commodities and stuff, and cheese, chunks of cheese, and sacks of flour, and big cans of number 10 cans of peanut butter. But now they went to this EBT card, the electronic benefit transfer. And so I took a gal out of jail. She was out of jail, and she said, "Lou, can you take me to the grocery store?" Her parents were elderly, so we went to the grocery store, and I just waited in the car. She went in, bought a couple. It was the start of the month, so she bought a couple carts of groceries. And I was thinking about it when I read this article about Trump, and they were attacking Trump for eating ice cream. How dare he have a bowl of ice cream? Because they say he likes ice cream. He eats a little bit each night. I thought, I don't know how he keeps his weight under control. Man, if I ate a little bit each night, I'd be 300 pounds. So anyway, I remember this girl bringing the groceries back, and I was going to take her to lunch. And she said, "Well, I'm afraid the ice cream's going to melt." She had these big gallons of ice cream. And I thought, man, for people that are tight on money, this is some nice looking big chunks of ice cream in the big old containers you bought right there. So anyway, Trump has been suggesting of getting rid of some of the value coming across those EBT cards, and instead of just shipping boxes of the essentials of life like beans and rice and wholesome foods, just, you know, like at Glad Tidings and at various churches around town, they put together like a Hand Up and Hands of Hope and different people. They put together food boxes that are kind of a package of a variety of foods so somebody can put together a few meals out of there, right? So Trump's discussing with the Department of Agriculture, under which food stamps are dispensed, that they look at putting together boxes of shelf-stable milk, like those cartons of milk, juice, grains, cereals, pasta, peanut butter, beans, canned meat. And so CNN was making fun of the canned meat. They were making fun of Spam. You ever eat Spam? Some people like Spam. They fry it. They do lots of stuff. It's like, hey, what I say is that, you know, a starving man never asks for a menu, right? They don't ask to look. You ever seen people? I get a kick. I go to restaurants, right, and eat because I don't have time to cook sometimes. And I like to stare at people when they're trying to figure out what to eat, because they haven't missed a meal in so long. They get confused when I look at a menu. They just can't. They don't want to choose wrong and not eat the best thing. It doesn't have anything to do with hunger. It's all a matter of taste, right? And they don't want to mischoose. So they flip the menu. They say if it's a 6-page menu, they'll flip it this way, and then they'll flip it back this way, and then they'll flip it this way, and then they'll flip it this way, and then they'll say, what are you going to get? And then they just are so insecure. Well, obviously they haven't missed a meal in like 40 years, right? And they could tell by looking at them. And so, that's why a starving man, a person would you can just, like those guys, when I like to look at like pictures of the Holocaust, because it's just so shocking what the Nazis did. But those guys would eat anything, right? They would eat anything. So I thought, hey, if Trump wanted to send me some milk, some juice, some grains, some cereals, pasta, peanut butter, beans, canned meat, poultry or fish, and canned fruits or vegetables, I would say, thank you, Jesus, right? I mean, if I was short on money and somebody wanted to bring me a box of food, Like when I was telling my friend Shari Afato, I was telling her that another friend of ours, after I had a couple operations, she would drop by with a blended coffee just to make me feel good, right? Because I was smarting from that operation. I'm telling you, if they came by with, and sometimes they'd bring me some food so I wouldn't have to cook, like a pre-made salad. I thought, well, thank you, God, right? That's awesome. I didn't have to get up and stand up too long. But look at all this, and people are complaining that, oh, you're taking our choice away, right? We don't get choice. We can choose to kill our kid, and we want to choose. I get in a line behind some of these people that got, I don't know whether some of them have the WIC. The WIC, they start pulling all this paperwork, separating all their groceries. But I get behind them in some of these deals, and, man, they got all kinds of crap in there that is bad for you, going to give you cancer, all kinds of sugar stuff, candy, soda pop, all kinds of crap that's no good for you. And so why should we supply, but, oh, yeah, well, you just need to give it away and just let them spend it however they want. The fact is, the reason people don't want to get off the EBT is they're selling that stuff. They're trading that for cigarettes and alcohol and dope. It's not a guess. I know these people. I know them personally. They're bobbing and weaving with these EBT cards. So Trump is looking at a way to cut this, and they're also looking at a way to able-bodied people, male or female, with or without kids, going to have to do, they're looking at putting them to work up to 20 hours a week for the benefits they get. Oh, my God, asking people to work. What kind of people are you? I'm telling you, I was reading an obituary today in the paper. I'm fascinated about these older people. I always like to see, well, how did you get started in life, right? And the guy said he went to work at 16 years of age, full-time. Boom, just went to work. Or went to the military, fought in World War II, was a Marine, what do they call it, merchant Marine, all that kind of stuff. Today, people just lay around and people just give them stuff. Just ridiculous. Ruins people's lives. Sad. So under President Obama, the number of Americans on food stamps went from 28 million to 50. You think he wasn't trying to make a statement there? Nearly doubled the amount of people on food stamps. Just give stuff away. That you're just going to make a socialist country. In fact, there's a city in California that now is going to give everybody in the city a minimum amount of money. Did you read that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, put that down. You might want to tap into that. Did you get that new job you were applying for? Not yet. Okay. So anyway, the number of people on Medicaid and CHIP programs, that's a health program, ballooned from 43 million to 73 million. Think about that. I want you to think, if you're working 5-6 days a week, some of you are working 7, some of you are working two jobs 7 days a week, some of you husbands and wives are working. So when you're working, Yuba County, some of the heads of Yuba County, they're only working 4 days a week, and they're getting paid full time. Some of them are only working 3 days a week. And then you're paying for all these people not do anything any days of the week. Isn't that something? And so I want you to think about this figure. The state and federal government in 2017 spent an estimated record. It's one thing when we raise more peaches than ever in history in Yuba County or Sutter County. It's one thing when you have a record like that. Or we built more airplanes in the United States than ever before. But when you have a record where 1.15 trillion with a T, 1.15 trillion we spent on welfare programs and subsidies for the poor. I want you to think about that. There was a time in the United States the government did not do anything with the poor. That was all done people to people, person to person, nonprofit, churches. The government used that money to build infrastructure, pay for law enforcement, fire. Unbelievable. When I was a kid, the streets of Marysville were smooth. Parks were watered. Parks were mowed. There was not all this stupid stuff going on, homelessness and stuff. Were there hobos? Yeah, but they behaved themselves. They didn't think they had a right to establish a 400-person camp on the river and dump 500. Do you know that Scott Mitnick? He's the CAO over in Sutter County. He calls it unclaimed debris. That's garbage, right? I like these euphemisms. Not only in government do they come up with this. Unclaimed debris. I'm going to ask you beside disposal. Will you come and pick up my unclaimed debris? So you forgot to pick up my unclaimed debris today. Not garbage anymore, right? So we're spending the tax dollars. I know a lot of people, man, work their butts off. And the money's forcefully taken from us. In fact, here's the deal. Here's a weird deal. If you are a bad money manager, you make a lot of money, but before you die, you end up just going to Las Vegas and Reno and blowing it on gambling and prostitutes. And the government would rather have you waste millions of dollars, but if you give it to your kids, they will tax you, right? Isn't that amazing? They reward crazy living. But if you're careful and you want to bless your kids with an inheritance like the Bible tells you to do, they will take that money from you. That's criminal. So they take that money and they're giving $1.15 trillion to the poor, the supposed poor. They don't even know what poor is in this country. You got to come to Vietnam and go to the rural areas. I was talking to Lon Williamson. He has LBK Optical on Plymouth Street. LBK Optical. They used to just be a eyeglass. They used to make glasses. A lab. That's all they did is they'd take orders from optometrists and ophthalmologists. They'd build the glasses, give it back to them. Then they started selling to the general public. They were down in. Anyway, I won't go the whole history, but anyway, I became friends. He's made glasses for me for years. So I was eating over there at the Sopatai the other night, and Lon's married to the lady that runs that. So anyway, he comes over and we got to talking about Vietnam, and he says, I don't know how we got into it. I was telling him about making recordings because people couldn't see. And he says, really? They can't see? I said, they don't have any, no, there's no health care, no glasses out in the rural areas. He said, Lou, I got thousands of frames that we don't even use. And he said, come by, and he said, let's figure out how to we'll put a different size, strength, just like the ones you buy off the shelf. And he says, maybe we can I'll send you over with them. And, but they don't even, you don't have any idea what poor is until you go this poor here. People got cell phones here. They got all the goodies. They got cars here. Under Obama, we went from $37 billion on food stamps to $74 billion on food stamps. We almost made it to $80 billion in 2013. Listen, Obama's a socialist. It wasn't that people were struggling. He just made it easier for them to collect. That's all that was. And the reason is that's what they want to do. They want to, if people don't, remember Nancy Pelosi said, hey, if people don't want to work, they can go, they can do their hobbies and stuff. And we'll just help them enjoy life, right? Jeez. Anyway, are we out of time? We're out of time. We're going to take a break here. We'll be right back. Okay. Well, we got a few minutes here before we're going to land the plane here at noon, and Sports Talk Operations coming in. And so I want to mention again, remind you about the Sutter Butte Tea Party Patriots meeting on the 19th, February the 19th, Monday. That's this coming Monday. So don't miss it. John Cox is running for governor. Some of you say, well, we need fewer politicians. We need a businessman. Cox is a businessman and a CPA and built his own business from scratch. So he is a long shot, right? Because we're living in California. But you got to get behind somebody. He's endorsed by the California Pro-Life Council. He's also fiscal, 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 and social conservative. That means he's tight on the dollar. Supports the Second Amendment, and So if you want to see him in person and hear him, you got your chance. 6:30 Monday night at the Church of Glad Tidings campus. Highway 99 to Eager Road, 1179 Eager in Yuba City. And it starts at 6:30, no charge. And you just can show up and be happy and check it out. Building 200, it's the first building on the left. And also, I want to just, again, remind you about my friends over at the Elite Security. And so I'm telling you, you want a job, there's jobs, or you can get trained to pack a weapon or get a job in the security business. And you can dial them up at 749-0280, 530-749-0280. So I know we, people from Butte County, Sutter, Yuba, Colusa, you know, there's work here. There's work and they work in Yuba, Sutter, Butte, and up in Redding, Shasta County. So if you want some action, you want to take a class, get your firearms license, guard card license, etc., check it out. Did you know, Wikiman, did you know that this is Black History Month? Did you know that? So do you think that Black History Month is cool, or what do you think about Black History? No big deal? No big deal to you? I think it's kind of racist myself. It's interesting, you know. Remember when Trump was running, they tried to tag him that he was involved with the Ku Klux Klan. You remember that with David Duke? Oh, somehow, just because David Duke said he liked Trump, that means that Trump was Ku Klux Klan. Well, the Ku Klux Klan, if you look it up, they were started. They were the Black Panthers of the Democrat Party. They were the enforcers of the Democrat Party, and they were killing whites and blacks. The whites that were against slavery and blacks that were getting out of line, the Ku Klux Klan. That was the Democrats. They loved slavery, and they still love slavery. And so this is a hypocrisy in America today. In the Congress, there are two Muslims. There's Keith Ellison, he's from Minnesota, and Andre Carson, he's out of Indiana. Fine, huh? Muslim, couple Muslim guys, no big deal to me. But they've been accused of attending Muslim Brotherhood events. Now, I want you to just think about this. If any conservative of whatever flavor attended a Ku Klux Klan event, the Muslim Brotherhood are terrorists. They're terrorists. They're behind killing of Americans. I want you to think about if anybody that was not a Muslim attended a KKK event, how people would feel about that. Or say if next month Wikiman and I decide to declare that it's White History Month. If we have a black volleyball team on campus, or a Hispanic volleyball team on campus, or Native American volleyball team, you know, like, you know, they have these official college teams, and then they have like intramural type teams just for fun. I remember a few years ago, a bunch of white guys said, this is the white team. And people just threw it. They had a total meltdown on campus, right? Even though there was all kinds of other flavors of teams, the homosexual team, the ladies team. So we had the white guys team, and they couldn't have it. They couldn't call it that, right? I have a picture here on my computer, and it's people standing in line at Ellis Island, white immigrants with their luggage, standing there holding their luggage. And it says, it's a beautiful picture. I love these old pictures. And it says, European Christians built this nation, being the U.S. They didn't come here to bitch, collect welfare, wage jihad, and replace the American Constitution with Sharia law. Hold that thought. So I get fascinated when black people refer to my people or our people. It's not Americans, right? You ever notice that? It's like, what's up with that? It's like, when I refer to our people, like when I'm in Vietnam and I'm talking to Vietnamese and they're asking me about America, and I'll I'll compare like the way we do something over here to the way they do something, whether it's family life or whatever. And I'll say, well, our people, I'm talking about all flavors over here. But when black people, maybe even some Hispanic, I don't know, but when they, particularly black people, when they say our people, and the thing is, they don't know jack about Africa. And the fascinating thing to me, I've been reading about Liberia, you know Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Those are two countries on the coast of Africa. I knew this about Liberia, but I didn't know about Sierra Leone. Liberia, or Liberty, was started by Americans, right? You remember that? There was a thought that once slavery was beginning, it was waning away. And just to remind everybody, 300,000 or white guys fought 300,000 white guys, 600,000, I don't know how many died, but 300,000 for 300,000. Or was 600,000, maybe they died. Maybe, it was, 600,000 died, all pretty much all white, on each side, 300,000 each. To stop, it ended up stopping slavery, right? That was one of the fights. So it wasn't like the blacks liberated themselves. And the interesting thing about slavery is it wasn't Americans that went over there and got people from those countries. They were brought by people wanting to peddle them, right? So it's interesting that our Constitution, and in fact, you know something, Chris Ann Hall has got some videos on this slavery thing. I'm going to order one to educate myself. I tried to do it online last night, got discombobulated. But the interesting thing about the slavery thing in the early 1800s, because more and more slaves are getting free, this is before the Civil War, people began to think, well, they're going to want to go back home. Think, oh, well, that's their home, right? They're black. That's where they're from. But they set up and they went over there and bought property. And there was a whole nonprofit set up to do that. But I can't remember. I don't have time to really get into it right now. But there were hundreds of thousands of black slaves, right, that were free. And only like 83 wanted to go. Does that crack you up? They just didn't want to go back home. They had become accustomed to the Christian, Judeo-Christian way of life, even though they were slaves. A lot of them met the Lord. And they did not want to go back to tribal life. They did not want to go back to primitive life. You know, I met in Arizona a few years ago with a bunch of guys that are all missions type guys, and they were discussing how to improve Africa. I thought, what am I doing in this group? This is a pretty heady group of people. And they were discussing just simple things like they grow like cashew nuts there. They grow great cashew nuts in Vietnam. They grow lots of cashews, amazing. But they're so screwed up in Africa, they cannot get the infrastructure straight to get the nuts to the coast, package them, and sell them throughout the world. So what happens is Indians, who are very bright and good business people, come in from India. They buy them up very cheap, and then they do all that, right? Because they know how to do that. But Africa today is still about as screwed up as it was when those folks left in the 1600s. When you go to a lot of places in Africa. In fact, I have a friend in San Diego who's an entrepreneur who was on a missions trip to the Congo, and he ran into this kind of a small, like a pygmy-style small group of people, small-sized, and they had an ailment that killed them, that all they needed was this certain type of medicine that was available, and he just went and bought it, set up clinics, and now he solved that problem for this whole group of people. Now, you would have think that would have been solvable by the people that run the Congo, but that's when they call them an SHIT hole, right? That's what it is. They didn't give a crap about those people, the people running the Congo, but my friend did, and he's down in San Diego, and he still takes care of those people, their medical needs. He funds the nurses, and he buys the medicine, and they have some kind of a genetic problem, but they solve it with this medication. Now listen, these people, these Africans, it's interesting. Again, you have to think this through. You got to get the big picture. I believe that God's involved in our lives, but he doesn't manage disasters. So when these people were abducted from a primitive lifestyle, I don't know whether you've ever lived over there. It's pretty screwed up. I was over on the shores of Lake Victoria in Uganda for 21 days. And they believe that if they got AIDS, a lot of them had AIDS over there. Remember, they had the AIDS really bad. All around that Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, they were getting AIDS left and right. But the reason was because they didn't believe in being faithful to their wife. So they were always having a time with their prostitutes, and then they would get AIDS, give it to their wife, give it to their kids, their new babies. Anyway, they believed in Uganda that if you got AIDS, if you found a virgin and had sex with her, that would get rid of the AIDS. Now, you know something? That's some stupid thinking right there, right? Now, the same thing, these Africans came to the United States under bad circumstances. But if you ask their descendants today, once they get done wearing them African clothes, they like throw on every once in a while and strut their stuff. If they'd like to go back and do it over there ain't nobody going back. Remember Eldridge Cleaver, the Black Panther? He went over there in Algeria. He lasted a year or two, came back over here, got saved, got straightened out. So these people got over here through funky circumstances. But they got blessed over here. These people, we got Supreme Court, we got the President of the United States black, we got Supreme Court Judge, Secretary of State, we got senators, da-da-da-da-da. None of them wanted to go back to Africa and become a dictator. And the same thing happened with the Hmong people. 100,000 Hmong died during the Laos and Vietnam War. They loved their country. In fact, they'd love to go back. Many Hmong would love to go back to Laos today, the older ones. But I'm telling you, the second generation does not want to go to Laos or Vietnam. They're living in nice houses. They're teachers. They're attorneys. These Hmong are social workers. Through very difficult and suffering circumstances, they came to this country. None of them spoke English. They didn't even know what a toilet looked like. They did not know what natural gas worked like. They did not know jack about anything about modern life. If you go over there today and go with me into the areas in North Vietnam, Central Highlands, they live like we lived in the 1600s. They're in no health care. There's no eye care. They're riding water buffaloes around, horses around. There ain't no cars. There few motorbikes. You'll find a whole family of 5 on a little motorbike. So when you look at what happened to the Hmong, came here under very, very difficult circumstances, suffering. A lot of them, you meet any Hmong, they will point to family members that died swimming across the Mekong Delta or were shot by communists. So you have all these blacks here that pretend they're Africans. They're not Africans. They don't want nothing to do with Africa. It's a bunch of double speak, double talk. That's all that is. And all this stuff, Black History Month. But if we have White History Month, oh my God, people have a total meltdown, freak out, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it ain't what it's cracked up to be, folks. And all this talk, they never had it so good. Them Africans over there, they're all wanting to come over here. They don't want to be slaves, but they're wanting to get what them other black dudes got. I remember there was a guy in Uganda who was, they brought him over here, some previous pastors that we had. This guy was really talented musician. They brought him over here to a Bible school, right? And they want him to get taught so he can go back, right? He never went back. They don't want to go back. Blacks come over here, go to school. They don't want to leave and go back over there. It's hard. I tell you, when I went to Uganda after Idi Amin got overthrown, power would just come off. It was like Tijuana. Power would just come on, go off, come on, go off, come on, go off. It was unbelievable. Water on, off, on, off, on, off. Going down the roads, big old hole. You could lay 2 or 3 bodies in some of those holes. They were artillery holes where shells landed. come on, man. Those countries over there are thrashed. It's horrible. It's dirt streets. It's crazy over there. And then, same way with Haiti. We have dumped hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into Haiti, and it didn't do jack. Didn't help anybody. Did you know that the Clintons, this is how stupid it is, the Hmong, when they came here, were so afraid of Western medicine. They never had medicine. All they did, if somebody got sick, they called in the shaman, sacrifice a pig or a chicken. And we had more than one Hmong family. We convinced them to put their baby on the helicopter. They never seen such a thing. They said, we don't know where that baby's going to go. Are these going to come back? Where's it going to go? They didn't know. We had to get an interpreter on the phone, straighten it all out. But, you know, the Clintons, when they went on a honeymoon down to Haiti or whatever they went and saw the witch doctors. The Clintons are involved in all kinds of perverted, stupid stuff. I'm telling you, the witch doctor, the whole demonic stuff keeps people in poverty. We just got a few minutes left. This stuff, did you know the IRS pays bonuses? You know what the government does? They'll give people bonuses just because they're breathing. They're doing an investigation on the IRS. Is there anything right about our government? Can you find anything that's working anywhere in our government? It's just, I'm not talking about, it doesn't matter who you put at the head of it. It's just a total ripoff. So I'm trying to find this deal. I can't find it now. Doggone it. About the government paying bonuses. The IRS is paying bonuses to people, and they're lousy workers. And some of them aren't even paying their taxes. They're IRS people that aren't paying their taxes, and they're getting bonuses. Some of them have sexual harassment charges against them, and they get bonuses, and the IRS can't figure out how to stop it, how to stop giving bonuses to the wrong people. Is that crazy? It's the most crazy thing. I cannot believe all this that's going on, but it just continues. And in government, do you know that in government, here it is here, IRS still paying bonuses to nearly 2,000 bad employees, including more than 24 who were actual tax cheats. Can you believe it? You're working for the IRS. It's like working for CPS and you're molesting kids. Unbelievable. IRS screening did not stop more than 1,000 employees with tax problems from getting bonuses. 1,962 employees with discipline problems. They get a bonus. Big pain in the rear employee, they give them a bonus. Say, thank you, Jesus. There you go. News report, it's a follow-up to anyway, 2,800 employees with conduct problems had gotten bonuses from 2010 to 2012. This is impossible. 3 employees who received a combined $7,000 in bonuses despite having $65,000 in outstanding tax balances. Why didn't they just take that money and pay their taxes? They would have taken my money. It's unbelievable. Now here's what Trump's getting at. 52% of able-bodied parents that are on food stamps don't do any work. They just say, hey, I need food stamps. I don't make much money. But they're able to work, but no one asks them. And the government, in the code, it actually says they should work. USDA data from fiscal year 2015 added that more than 12 million able-bodied parents use food stamps. They're able-bodied. They got 2 legs, 2 arms. They don't have emphysema. Nearly 3 times the number of people in this group who enrolled in food stamps in the year 2000. So in other words, from 2000 to 2015, it tripled. People are just good to go. You just need to go put them somewhere and have them work. The current federal policy, this is amazing. I'm just amazed. I talked about the school system earlier. People just don't follow their own rules. The federal policy states that able-bodied adults without children can only receive benefits from SNAP for 3 months, 90 days, during a 3-year period without working or participating in a state-approved job training, etc. Obama just said, "I'll forget all that stuff. We're just going to give you the money." So now they're going to. Trump's trying to get a program where the Scott Walker, remember Scott Walker in Wisconsin? He proposed that state's current food stamp work requirement be that able-bodied adults without kids work at least 20 hours a week to receive the benefits. And it could be expanded for parents with children between the ages of 6 and 18 by October 2019. Boy, watch people squeal and complain. We're done. We're calling it a day. Stay tuned for the sports guys coming in.